Good afternoon. We're here to... Okay, good. Can you hear me now? Okay. This is a very important conference that we're going to get started here with today. I'd like to first introduce a person who was worked in the TSBD building for the Texas School Book Depository company. And he knew most of the people that worked there. You might recognize him in the Altgens 6 photograph as black profile. And his name is Roy Lewis. This is the first time that Roy ever comes to a conference of this nature. He is a primary witness. I would consider him tainted because he's never been to one of these affairs. And he's got a lot of primary information. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Roy Lewis. We sit here, or what? But Roy, give us a little bit of background on how you got to the Texas School Book Depository and what age and everything, and where you're from, so our audience can learn about it.
Okay, I'm Roy Lewis. I started at the Texas School Book Depository in the summer of 1962, I believe. Now, how I got started there, I lied to get the age up. I was 16. I told them I was 18. They did not do a background check, so I started working. I worked from there. I was just going to work the summer, but I had got married at a young age at 16, so I stayed there and worked. So I worked up the years there with them. And I knew I worked with Lee Harvey Oswald every day and all the other guys that worked there every day. I was the youngest one there, and I think the next youngest one there was Wesley Frazier. And we worked and wrote I filled orders. And we would always catch the elevator on the first floor and go up all the way to the 6th floor and fill your orders all the way down. You had the 6th floor down to the 2nd floor where they kept books in the warehouse, and you would fill those orders. You get your orders downstairs, go up and fill your orders upstairs. Bring them back down, and then you pack them down. Yeah, that's
Sure. Okay, Roy, on the 22nd of November, can you give us a brief outline of what transpired that day? You went up to the 6th floor. Tell us about it.
Well, on November 22nd, I guess it would have been, it was supposed to be an ordinary day, but we went up, we filled the orders that day, and I went upstairs up to the 6th floor, and as we usually do, there usually be 2 of us up there, but this time it was only 1 of us. I was up there. And as I looked over to the, in the corner there, right corner there, I saw books stacked up, cards of books, not books, cards of books stacked up. They were stacked up about, I guess about 3 or 4 feet, 4 or 5 feet high, where you couldn't see anybody if they was over in that corner. The books were protecting whoever was over in that corner. Can y'all hear me? Okay. The books were stacked up high, and they were protecting who was over in the corner. Now, I got close to that corner, but I had sister not to go over in there and try to peek over there. I didn't go over there and try to find out what was behind those cards of books. And after that, I went back down. And then it wasn't long, somebody else that went up on the 6th floor. And I asked them if they saw the books. They saw the books too. So I just wasn't imagining the books. They were there. And this was around 10-something in the morning when that happened. When the books was when I went upstairs. And I don't. We was all, go to lunch. We had a little small lunchroom. Everybody went to the same lunchroom. Matter of fact, we used to tease Lee Harvey Oswald about if he didn't get his hair cut, that we were going to throw him down and cut his hair. He would let his hair grow down his neck. Because, you know, he never did anything. He just smiled and looked at you. Yeah.
Now, Roy, you talked about, there's been a lot of talk about what was happening up on supposedly what was happening up on the 6th floor about the refurbishing of the floor. Can you give us information on it? Huh? Go ahead. That's no. If the floors were being refurbished or not, to your knowledge.
Yeah, they were just kind of doing not refurbishing. They were just kind of remodeling or refurbishing a little bit on the floor. But it wasn't really a big deal to us, you know, how we worked there. It wasn't really a big deal to us.
Okay, how did you get down to the doorway, and at what time? Can you tell us about that?
Well, when I got through filling orders, like I said, it was around, I guess, about 11 or 12. And, on the day of the assassination, well, I think I was about the last one to come out of the building. All the rest of them was out in front, and I was at the top of the steps when you come out the front door. I don't know if anybody knows the front door part of it, the glass door. Well, I was at the top because I was about the last one to come out of the building. And when I came out of the building, I was there a few seconds, and I heard the shots ring out. But before I did that, last thing I remember seeing was President Kennedy brush his hair to the side, and after then, the shots went out, rang out. I think it was 3 shots now, I don't know for sure. Bang, bang, no, bang, 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 and that was it. But now, then when the shots rang out, a lot of people ran toward it, including me, went toward the grassy knoll over there to the side of the building. Now, when we got over to the side of the building, the police stopped us and told us to go back. We couldn't go no further. We went about maybe 5 yards or so back around the side, and he stopped us. But in the meantime, first of all, when the shots ran out, people dropped to the ground. I forgot to tell that part. Everybody dropped to the ground. The ones that didn't drop to the ground got up, and they started for the grassy knoll. And that's all I can remember about that. Well, when we first came, when we asked, after the police came in and they wanted Roy Truly to gather up everybody that worked there, well, Mr. Truly gathered up everybody that worked there. And the first thing we say was, got in there, where is Lee? Well, Lee was missing. And I was just informed that Charles Gibbons was missing. I remember that he was missing at that time. But we knew Lee Oswald was missing, so that was it. And they police interviewed everybody. They got through interviewing everybody. We had to wait until they got through with everybody. And they got through with everybody. They let us go.
Okay, the other African American workers that worked with you, what was your relationship with them?
Oh, it was good. Everybody there had a pretty good relationship. Everybody.
Can you name some of the names?
Charles Gibbons. You had Bonnie Ray. You had Wes Wesley. You had Weston, not Wesley. James Earl Drummond Jr. You had Norman. Yeah. And we had an elder guy named Piper. And we had a black guy named Edward Shields. Edward Shields. And that's about all I can remember right now.
Now, when you fellows got together after the assassination, did you discuss what was going on and what had happened amongst yourselves? And tell us a little bit about that, because nobody has ever talked about that before. You and your co-workers, your African-American co-workers.
We really didn't do a whole lot of talking about it. We just, because They told us not to, they told us not to be discussing anything, and so we did not discuss anything too much, but after it was all over with, they would, the Warren Commission or the FBI would came to everybody's house that was there, worked there. They came to the place where I lived, and I was upstairs, and they came downstairs, and nobody, you're in a small community like that, nobody would, they told them they didn't know me, and I lived upstairs. But, so, if they really wanted to find me, they couldn't find me, but I was upstairs, but they didn't find me, so that's why I don't have a book now. I didn't write a book anything.
Now we've noticed, researchers have noticed that a lot of the African American people that were lining the street and they were present in Gilly Plaza have never really spoken out. Do you have an idea why? That might be, or even identified for that?
No, like I said, like me, I was just, after that, I was just totally ignored. It wasn't anything after that. They really didn't act like they wasn't interested in what the African American had to say, or what was their story, or they wasn't interested in anything. It looked like to us. Now, that's what it looked like to me.
Do you think they might have been intimidated or anything like that?
It could have been intimidated.
Okay, now let's talk about a little bit about the doorway. Can you tell us about who was behind you or whatever, or did you look behind that you could say, hey, I saw so and so there or whatever?
I can say I saw Billy Lovelace there, but I can't say for sure that I saw Lee Harvey Oswald. They looked alike, so really I couldn't really tell. It looked like Lovelace standing on my I would say on my left side. And all the rest of it was people that in front of me were mainly office people. You didn't have too many of the people that worked there up on the top where I was, the top steps, because I was, like I said, I was the last one that came out, one of the last one.
Now let's talk a little bit about Frazier, Wesley Frazier. They say that he used to give Lee a ride only on weekends. Do you have any information on it?
Yeah. He would give Lee a ride every day, Monday through Friday. He would pick Lee up and bring him to work. Wesley Frazier was the next youngest one there. He was a Caucasian. He was the youngest one there besides me. And he would pick Lee up every day and bring Lee to work. Okay? Bring him to work and take him home every day.
The reason that's important is because the official story is that Wesley Frazier only did that on weekends, where he would take Lee to Irving on weekends and then bring him back on Sunday evening, and then he would stay in his rooming house the rest of the day and probably use public transportation to get to work at the Texas School Book Depository. So, but that's not what you witnessed.
It's not true. He would bring him to work every morning, because Lee didn't have a car. And I don't know how close him and Wesley lived, but Wesley would pick him up every day.
Now, we've shown you some of the overlays and of the people in the doorway. Do you have an opinion at all on what we see there at all, or anything? If you don't want to talk about it, just let us know. No? All right. Is there anything anybody want to ask?
I have a couple of questions, and thank you for coming. You say you were in the doorway. If you remember who was around you and where they were, you said Lovelady was to your left?
Yeah.
And you were standing where in the doorway, roughly in the center or the left? Or
You can
the
see
right?
his profile right there on the screen. His profile, black man there in front
Yes.
of doorman.
But were you that far to the right? Were you crouched down by his belly button?
No. The problem is that there's a distortion here. There's quite a bit of difference in the distance between the two. Doorman is standing right in the middle of the stairway. There was a center railing at that time, and he was standing right against the wall, the west wall of the entrance on the first step.
Okay. Okay. Except what I find interesting is that, of course, it's down by the belly button and it's not facing Kennedy and so on. Do you remember looking off that way? Or did they take that and move that profile?
Well, when I came out, I was facing this way when I came out. When I came out, I was facing.
Yeah, she's starting already.
Way down by the belly button.
He's not that close, they're not that close together.
I'm just asking.
Well, not that close together. Like I said, I was about the last one that came out of the building. Where everybody was running, anxious to go see. I wasn't really that anxious to go see. That's why I was the last one out. And when I was the last one out, like I said, when I came out, the last thing I remember, or one of the last thing I saw was him brushing his hair like this. And then that's when the shots rang out. After he brushed his hair, that's when the shots rang out.
Yes, when you say that Frazier took him home every day, was he taking him to the Payne house, or was he taking him to the rooming house? Are you aware of that?
Good question. I can't answer that. I don't know where he was taking him.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you know he was taking him every day?
How did you know he was taking him every day?
Well, we would see him go to the car together every day.
Every day.
Uh-huh. Okay.
You said that when Roy Truman gathered everybody together, that's kind of a roll call, and Lee Harvey Oswald was not there. Was that kind of a big deal, or were there a lot of people that had gone home?
No, Lee Harvey Oswald and I think Charles Gibbons was the only two. Nobody went home. Well, nobody was supposed to leave, but Lee was gone, and he said Charles Gibbons wasn't there. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to follow up. I was the one that told you about Charles Gibbons before. Charles Gibbons was the one who was missing and had narcotics charge against him. So they dispatched, they said Gibbons is also missing. He's the Negro who had narcotics conviction. So I think they put a little pressure on him because initially his statement was he didn't see Oswald on the 6th floor at Central 12. After he was sort of probably intimidated, he changed his story to say that he did see Oswald on the 6th floor about Central 12.
Okay, my hand over here.
When you began running towards the grassy knoll, were you thinking, I'm going to find a shooter? What was your motivation to run?
Well, yes, that's what I think that's what everybody was thinking at that time, that we going around there to see what I mean, really, you think about it, that was crazy to do that anyway. but it was a lot of people that were going around there. And when he got around it, like I said, the police stopped us. No, don't go no further. Well, we was thinking that's where the shots came from. That's what we was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Yes, sir.
So you said the shots, the bam, 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 that was where the headshot was. What about the turn onto Elm that was closer to the actual doorway? Did you hear any, supposedly there was more silent shots coming from the Altgens building, and the louder shots came later down, almost where the limo is now. So the turn onto Elm, was there anything funny that you heard or saw?
You mean when he first turned on the Elm?
When you first come in with where this Spurter film is not shown, the very first part of it, that first turn.
I can't tell you that for sure, but all I know is when I came out, I was facing the Elm Street. I was facing the street that way where you just turned. I couldn't tell you whether the silent or anything happened, noise happened then. All I could say when I came out, I saw this, and then that's when the shots rang off.
Okay, so he's right where the limo is, like pretty much right now, where you saw.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
With Lee, did you talk with him that day? Did he have a different kind of demeanor? And were there other people that normally are not seen in the building? Did you notice any people who shouldn't be there?
No, we talked every day, all of the guys. We had a small break room, and everybody went in your break room during break time. Everybody would talk. No, his demeanor was no different than any other day. I think he was next.
When you ran to the grassy knoll, did you see smoke or did you smell smoke?
No, they did not. We didn't get that. We didn't get close enough for that. We stopped immediately. After we turned the corner in the building, we stopped immediately. We didn't get that trouble. Okay, gentleman back there.
Were the men who stopped you, were they uniformed police officers or were they in plain clothes?
Uniform.
Okay.
Okay, I think you've been had your hand a long time.
Okay, the interviews that you had that day at the depository, were those the only interviews that you ever had from any police agency?
Yes, and I thought that was strange.
And were they federal agents or local police?
They were local. Well, wait a minute, I can't remember. I'm a lot older, much older. I don't know if they were local police or were they. I think they might have been federal agents. I don't know for sure.
Were they in uniform or plain clothes?
They was not in uniform.
I have a question about Oswald's attendance. If you believe the story of other people such as James Files, there's testimony about him chauffeuring people around, including James Files. What was his attendance record in general, and what was it particularly in the last week or 10 days before the election? Were there hours during the day he was not there for some reason?
No, he was there every day, all
He was
day,
there every day.
just like the rest of us. Now, they were kind of particular about you being absent, late, and all that. Now, he was there every day.
And did you ever see him drive? It's reported he couldn't drive. Others have said he could drive. We all know he didn't have a vehicle, but did you ever see him drive or hear him say he could drive?
No, never did.
And did he ever say who got them the job or what motivated him to apply for the job there?
No, we've never discussed that. Now, I don't know who got him the job. I know Mr. Truly hired, Roy Truly hired him. I don't know who got him the job. Yes.
Why did you guys all come out the doorway? What was the reason you guys come out the doorway?
They came out the doorway to see the president go back.
Just to go by?
Yes, to see the president go back. Yes.
How many officers would you estimate there were that prevented you from going through the grassy knoll area?
We only saw one there when we went around. That's all we saw, one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see Lee arrive that morning and was he carrying anything?
Well, now I would be lying to you if I say I saw him. But the word was that he did bring something in, but I did not see it personally. And it was a long box. They said the long box looked like a curtain rod. And I was wondering, why would you bring something like that to work that day? That day when you just left home, why would you bring curtain rods to work? Okay, I believe somebody, gentleman in the back.
Yes, sir, thank you. In the picture that's up on the screen where you are in front of halfway down on Lovelady, is the man with his arms risen Frazier on that picture? Or is that where Frazier was?
I really can't tell. It's kind of blurry. I can't tell if that's Frazier.
Was he in that general area?
That's in the general area he would have been.
All right, thank you. So then he would have known that that was Lovelady standing about 4 feet from him?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
When you heard the shots, did you think that any of them came from the school book depository? When you heard the boom, boom, boom? Did it sound like any of them came from there?
Yes, it sounded like it came from there.
Okay.
Well, I was very surprised, but yeah, it did sound like it came from there.
We have time for a couple more questions.
Do you have any idea how long you worked there?
How long what?
How long Oswald worked there?
Oh, several months, I guess 6 months, something like that, 4 to 6 months, somewhere like that. Yes, ma'am.
I did some of the work on this photograph. I was part of the writers who did the work on this photograph. And you're facing, that's you. You're facing totally away from Kennedy in that picture. So there's some question of whether they doctored that photo to put a profile in right there. Because you said you saw Kennedy wipe his hair.
Yeah, right.
And he's down the street from that, and that profile is facing the other way. So I would like you to comment about, if you remember turning your head a hell of a way away from Kennedy, right after the next shot?
Like perhaps reacting to the shots from...
Because that profile looks like it's doctored into the photograph. So I did want to comment on that. Thank you for
That's a
taking
very
the
good
question.
point.
That's a good, yeah, good point.
The car's down the street this way, and that's a close-up.
Yeah, he's down there.
Right, and that's facing the opposite direction. So is that you? And if not, or if you turned that totally opposite way, looking way up Elm. See, that's the opposite direction of that.
Yeah, you're right.
It may look like that, but this is where I was when I came out, like this. When I
Right.
came out, okay, when I came out, he was turning. He was turning when I first come out, but when I got down and stopped, I saw him do this. But I was turned this way.
Can we show the full photograph again? Because that profile is facing the opposite direction. Note where the car is in the full photograph. That's
Yeah, like he's looking opposite...
he's looking way back up. I forget the name of that building.
Daltex.
Daltex. That profile is looking at the Daltex. If you can just remark on the photograph for me, it's showing.
I asked Roy, I just wanted to answer that quickly. I asked Roy this about a year ago, and he was surprised that they showed him looking that way. I asked him if he was looking that way in reaction to maybe gunfire or something that he heard or saw, and he just doesn't remember it.
Okay, because you can see what I mean. That's not facing the front of the building, and it's facing the left of the building as you come out. That profile is facing the opposite direction of Kennedy. So it's an important point.
That's right.
But the lady in the lower left corner is facing the same direction as well. She's looking the same direction as Roy's looking.
That's correct.
Right.
The lady, no, that's a child. That's a child that was added over to cover the guy in the hat.
Below the child.
Okay. We're going to start the presentation. Okay.
Let me get one more.
Boy, you mentioned 3 shots. Are you very sure about the number of shots?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Pretty fast. I got a lot of slides here, so we're only going to be up there for a couple of seconds. Now, this presentation attempts to identify the 2 controversial figures in the doorway of the TSBD in the Altgens 6 photograph. Our 2 test subjects are Lee Oswald and Billy Lovelady. This is, as we have up on the screen, is the clearest version available of the Altgens 6 photograph. For those who have never seen it, the inset shown here is the area in question. Okay? Now, this is the close-up of the TSBD doorway. The scan has been widely used to identify Billy Lovelady. This scan originated from a book published by Robert Broden called The Search for Lee Harvey Oswald. And like I said, most people who have identified Billy Lovelady as doorman have used this slide in particular to say that it's him. And this is a close-up of doorman, also known as the man in the doorway. This is Billy Lovelady at the FBI photo shoot of February the 29th, 1964. The reason this photo shoot is important is because it shows us what Billy Lovelady really looked like front view and side view. Using this photograph, we can work with existing photographs, and especially the Altgens 6 photograph and others of him, where we can perform overlays, digital overlays, to identify Billy Lovelady. These images allow us to calibrate the system, okay, and draw empirical data to make accurate comparisons with other photos of Lovelady and Lee Oswald. This is Lee Oswald under arrest at City Hall the evening of November 22nd, 1963, wearing the same shirt that he had on during the entire day. This is a color rendition of that shirt. It was rust-colored, brownish. It was a sort of tweed material interlaced, and it was a very particular and very special shirt because I don't know that we've seen anything like it. The provenance of the shirt, I have no idea. Okay, but we are 100% sure that he wore that same shirt during the day of the assassination and throughout the night in City Hall when they had the midnight conference on November 22nd. Okay. Now, facial recognition terms that are going to be used here today And I just want to review those quickly. Okay. Interpupillary distance is the distance that we use to set the probe, or we have a probe image, which is the one that we're working on, that we're trying to identify, and we have gallery images, which are the images that we are going to overlay onto the probe. Okay, we use perspective, has to be the same. Facial symmetry is important because in this case, we use a couple of photographs that we've had to flip. And the reason for that is because photographs with that same angle of doorman do not exist. Now, there's one particular photograph that I'm going to show here today where Billy Lovelady is in that same perspective, that same angle, that same position. Okay? Now, layers and image overlays. What we're working here, we're working with layers, okay, where we, like I just mentioned, we overlay the gallery image over the probe. Okay, and we use different opacity values in order to discern what if these images, if these two individuals are one and the same, or if they are different individuals. Scaling and alignment. We use scaling and alignment to once we have the interpupillary distance set, we move the overlay to match it as much as possible. Okay, and that's where scaling and alignment is important. Photogrammetry is when we put two photographs of the test individual and the probe, the photograph that we're testing, side by side, and we draw lines across. Okay, now we can also actually overlay rulers and grids, which allow us to give us an exact comparison between one and the other. Biometrics is part of the measurement of features, and I'll show you, just give you a couple of examples of how we use biometrics here. And this is all tied up with by computers and software. We are now at a stage in the case where we can actually use technology which did not exist 50 years ago or even 10 years ago, and that's very important. Okay. Now, the methodology, the forensic facial recognition field has advanced to a point where the next couple of slides are going to have a little bit of already recorded information. So I'm just going to run that real quickly here, okay?
Image overlaying and facial recognition. Facial recognition using image overlaying software is widely used and accepted in the field of forensic science. The following is quoted verbatim from this source. The procedure of the comparison can be qualitative or quantitative, using relative or absolute dimensions. In a morphological comparison, the location and size of facial features is measured relatively, not absolutely. If the perspectives of the question and known images are similar, and the position of the head is similar, the image depicting the known individual can be scaled to that of the questioned individual by using the interpupillary distance or other consistent features within the image. Overlay of the scaled known image and the questioned image can then be made in order to determine if the relative alignment of other facial features is consistent. This overlay of images is also referred to as the superimposition method and can be performed with video editing or image processing equipment. The variation of the overlay approach is a photogrammetric one. A side-by-side of the images is prepared and two sets of 3 or more parallel lines are drawn through facial features such as the jawline, pupils, nasal bridge, on both images and compared by position. For both a photogrammetric and overlay approach, the images must be of the same perspective, but the key difference is that an overlay allows one to view the length and width simultaneously, although viewing the lines in the photogrammetric approach leaves more to human perception as one looks across both images. Superimposition can appear to be doctoring of the evidence if not properly explained. because scaling implies changing the images to effect alignment, but the method is sound. Therefore, a superimposition can provide extremely beneficial information to determine if features appear to be the same and if the relative locations and dimensions relate. With an overlay, the examiner can blink back and forth between questioned and known imagery to assist in the comparison by identifying similarities and dissimilarities. In this type of comparison, facial landmarks, standard reference marks generally defined by the underlying structure of the skull, are used in the main as guides and are not typically measured.
Okay, now we've got that out of the way. The angle of the flipped image of this, the angle of the flipped image of Lee Oswald offers the same perspective as doorman. Okay, because there are no known photographs of Lee Oswald with the exact same perspective and angle that we see in the Altgens 6 photograph. This is the Oswald image that will be used for testing. It is also known, like I just mentioned, as a gallery image. Now, in order to use a flipped image, we need to find out and decide and show you, demonstrate that the symmetry of the face of Lee Oswald was consistent in the manner that we could do this. Okay, now this is from the New Orleans Police Department mugshot, okay, and this is the normal, and this is the flipped image, okay. When we combine the two at 50% opacity, we get this, okay. So this is a very symmetrical face, which in my mind validates the use of the flipped image. The same happens with Billy Lovelady. This is a flipped image of Billy Lovelady, which also offers the same perspective as Dorman. This is one of the other gallery images that will be used here for testing. When we run the facial symmetry test on Billy Lovelady, and again, this is why that photo shoot, that FBI photo shoot, is so important, because we can establish our protocol and our scientific reasoning by running these tests. Okay, and this is the flipped image of Billy Lovelady. When we combine them at 50% opacity, this is the result. Okay, now, doorman. This collage is a close-up of the man in the doorway showing his relative position. He is located right on the top landing of the stairway in the middle, which is what the lady here was commenting on. He is located right on the top landing of the stairway in the middle, standing against the center rail. This is our control or probe image, doorman. Bear in mind that this is nothing more than a close-up of the scan shown earlier. Okay? Our two gallery images, when we show them side by side, both of them are flipped. The face angles are the same as doorman. Okay, this is a photograph taken by Bob Jackson in 1971, where he placed Billy Lovelady on the third step of the TSPD entrance. Why is this photograph important? Because this photo published in newspapers when Lovelady died in 1979 is from that same photo shoot by Jackson in 1971. This non-flipped photo offers the perfect perspective to compare with doorman. So we notice how Jackson posed Lovelady in the same angle seen in doorman. This is our third gallery image. Now, in order to validate this methodology, we need to run test overlays, okay, and calibrate the system. Okay, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's begin by explaining how facial recognition works. We begin by introducing the calibration of the system. This first example contains two women who are obviously not the same person. Pretty fast, I got a lot of slides here, so I'm only going to be up there for a couple of seconds. Now, this presentation attempts to identify the two controversial figures in the doorway of the TSPD in the Altgens 6 photograph. Our two test subjects are Lee Oswald and Billy Lovelady. This is we have up on the screen is the clearest version available of the Altgens 6 photograph. For those who have never seen it, the inset shown here is the area in question. Okay? Now, this is a close-up of the TSBD doorway. The scan has been widely used to identify Billy Lovelady. This scan originated from a book published by Robert Groden called The Search for Lee Harvey Oswald. And like I said, most people who have identified Billy Lovelady as doorman have used this slide in particular to say that it's him. And there's a close-up of doorman, also known as the man in the doorway. This is Billy Lovelady at the FBI photo shoot of February the 29th, 1964. The reason this photo shoot is important is because it shows us what Billy Lovelady really looked like front view and side view. Using this photograph, we can work with existing photographs, and especially the Altgens 6 photograph and others of him, where we can perform overlays, digital overlays, to identify Billy Lovelady. These images allow us to calibrate the system, okay, and draw empirical data to make accurate comparisons with other photos of Lovelady and Lee Oswald. This is Lee Oswald under arrest at City Hall the evening of November 22nd, 1963, wearing the same shirt that he had on during the entire day. This is a color rendition of that shirt. It was rust-colored, brownish. It was a sort of tweed material interlaced, and it was a very particular and very special shirt because I don't know that we've seen anything like it. The provenance of the shirt, I have no idea, okay, but we are 100% sure that he wore that same shirt during the day of the assassination and throughout the night in City Hall when they had the midnight conference on November 22nd, okay. Now, facial recognition terms that are going to be used here today, and I just want to review those quickly. Okay, interpupillary distance is a distance that we use to set the probe. Or we have a probe image, which is the one that we're working on, that we're trying to identify, and we have gallery images, which are the images that we are going to overlay onto the probe. Okay, we use perspective, has to be the same. Facial symmetry is important because in this case we use a couple of photographs that we've had to flip, and the reason for that is because photographs with that same angle of doorman do not exist. Now there's one particular photograph that I'm going to show here today where Billy Lovelady is in that same perspective, that same angle, that same position. Okay. Now, layers and image overlays. What we're working here, we're working with layers, okay, where we, like I just mentioned, we overlay the gallery image over the probe, okay, and we use different opacity values in order to discern if these images, if these two individuals are one and the same, or if they are different individuals. Scaling and alignment, we use scaling and alignment to, once we have the interpupillary distance set, we move the overlay to match it as much as possible, okay, and that's where scaling and alignment is important. Photogrammetry is when we put two photographs of the test individual and the probe, the photograph that we're testing, side by side, and we draw lines across. Okay, now we can also actually overlay rulers and grids, which allow us to give us an exact comparison between one and the other. Biometrics is part of the measurement of features, and I'll show you, just give you a couple of examples of how we use biometrics here. And this is all tied up with by computers and software. We are now at a stage in the case where we can actually use technology which did not exist 50 years ago or even 10 years ago, and that's very important. Okay. Now, the methodology, the forensic facial recognition field has advanced to a point where I'm gonna, the next couple of slides are gonna have a little bit of already recorded information. So I'm just gonna run that real quickly here, okay?
Image overlaying and facial recognition. Facial recognition using image overlaying software is widely used and accepted in the field of forensic science. The following is quoted verbatim from this source. The procedure of the comparison can be qualitative or quantitative, using relative or absolute dimensions. In a morphological comparison, the location and size of facial features is measured relatively, not absolutely. If the perspectives of the questioned and known images are similar, and the position of the head is similar, the image depicting the known individual can be scaled to that of the questioned individual by using the interpupillary distance or other consistent features within the image. Overlay of the scaled known image and the questioned image can then be made in order to determine if the relative alignment of other facial features is consistent. This overlay of images is also referred to as the superimposition method and can be performed with video editing or image processing equipment. The variation of the overlay approach is a photogrammetric one. A side-by-side of the images is prepared and two sets of 3 or more parallel lines are drawn through facial features such as the jawline, pupils, nasal bridge on both images and compared by position. For both a photogrammetric and overlay approach, the images must be of the same perspective, but the key difference is that an overlay allows one to view the length and width simultaneously, although viewing the lines in the photogrammetric approach leaves more to human perception as one looks across both images. Superimposition can appear to be doctoring of the evidence if not properly explained, because scaling implies changing the images to effect alignment, but the method is sound. Therefore, a superimposition can provide extremely beneficial information to determine if features appear to be the same and if the relative locations and dimensions relate. With an overlay, the examiner can blink back and forth between questioned and known imagery to assist in the comparison by identifying similarities and dissimilarities. In this type of comparison, facial landmarks, standard reference marks generally defined by the underlying structure of the skull, are used in the main as guides and are not typically measured.
Okay, now we've got that out of the way. The angle of the flipped image of this, the angle of the flipped image of Lee Oswald offers the same perspective as doorman. Okay, because there are no known photographs of Lee Oswald with the exact same perspective and angle that we see in the Altgens 6 photograph. This is the Oswald image that will be used for testing. It is also known, like I just mentioned, as a gallery image. Now, in order to use a flipped image, we need to find out and decide and show you, demonstrate that the symmetry of the face of Lee Oswald was consistent in the manner that we could do this. Okay, now this is from the New Orleans Police Department mugshot, okay, and this is the normal, and this is the flipped image, okay. When we combine the two at 50% opacity, we get this, okay. So this is very symmetrical face, which in my mind validates the use of the flipped image. The same happens with Billy Lovelady. This is a flipped image of Billy Lovelady, which also offers the same perspective as Dorman. This is one of the other gallery images that will be used here for testing. When we run the facial symmetry test on Billy Lovelady, and again, this is why that photo shoot, that FBI photo shoot is so important, because we can establish our protocol and our scientific reasoning by running these tests. Okay, and this is the flipped image of Billy Lovelady. When we combine them at 50% opacity, this is the result. Okay? Now, doorman. This collage is a close-up of the man in the doorway showing his relative position. He is located right on the top landing of the stairway in the middle, which is what the lady here was commenting on. He is located right on the top landing of the stairway in the middle, standing against the center rail. This is our control or probe image, doorman. Bear in mind that this is nothing more than a close-up of the scan shown earlier. Okay? Our two gallery images, when we show them side by side, both of them are flipped. The face angles are the same as doorman. Okay, this is a photograph taken by Bob Jackson in 1971 where he placed Billy Lovelady on the third step of the TSBD entrance. Why is this photograph important? Because this photo published in newspapers when Lovelady died in 1979 is from that same photo shoot by Jackson in 1971. This non-flipped photo offers the perfect perspective to compare with doorman. So we notice how Jackson posed Lovelady in the same angle seen in doorman. This is our third gallery image. Now, in order to validate this methodology, we need to run test overlays, okay, and calibrate the system. Okay, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's begin by explaining how facial recognition works. We begin by introducing the calibration of the system. This first example contains two women who are obviously not the same person. After setting interpupillary distance, aligning and scaling one layer onto another, this is the result. Okay? You will notice that the grid sets the interpupillary distance, and when we lay one onto another, this is the result. Now, our next example compares two platinum blondes with very similar hairstyles and overall features. In this case, Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. When we combine them at 50% opacity, this is the result. So we can see here, there's quite the only thing similar from both of them are actually the hairstyles, but if you look closely, you'll see that the mouths overlap, the nose, the eyebrows, etc. So this tells us that these are not the same person. Now our next slide is a collage that shows the result of this exercise. The most dramatic differences are shown in image number 3, right here, which I have already pointed out, which shows differences in mouth, brow line, and general facial contour. Now, let's move on to test overlays of different photos of Marilyn Monroe. Now, these are overlays of the same person in different photographs. This one and this one. By slightly tinting the image and overlaying one onto another, this is the result. As you can see, all the features line up. Even the birthmark that she had over her left lip there. And it's pretty obvious that the eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, everything lines up perfectly. So what we're doing here is calibrating the system, okay? Again, a very important part of scientific methodology and protocol. Now this is an example. What about testing photos of the same individual at different ages, different time periods? This example spans a difference of 44 years. This was a fellow who happened to have been on the lam for 44 years after a murder case in Ohio. This 8-image collage shows from the different levels of opacity from 0 at the top left all the way to 100%. If you look closely, you will see that all the features line up despite the amount of time that has gone by here. Okay? So, let's move on now to Lee Oswald and Billy Lovelady. these four images of Lee Oswald at different times of his life, which will be used. We will also use to calibrate facial overlays of one of our test subjects, which in this case is Lee Oswald. I just want to point out the one on the top left is his Marine, when he was in the Marines. This is from the passport photograph. This one here is from the New Orleans Police Department mugshot. And this one here is actually the one from the mugshot of the Dallas Police Department on November 22nd, 1963. Now, I want to point out something very important in this photograph. As you see, the left eyebrow, okay, was a result of the beating that Lee Oswald had that day at the hands of the police department when he was arrested in the Texas theater. So when we start doing some of these overlays, you might see a little bit of movement in that particular area, but that is perfectly fine and normal. There's no problem with that because of that anomaly that he has over his left eyebrow. Now, when we color code these photographs, okay, the Marine, the passport, New Orleans, and Dallas, okay, now we can work with these doing overlays such as this one. This is an animation where we show how the features do not move. You'll see that what moves here is the Dallas Police Department area in the left eyebrow. Okay, but other than that, the nose, the eyes, the lips, the chin, and everything lines up perfectly for Lee Oswald. Now, this is a photogrammetric comparison that I was just talking about earlier. We can actually use this grid and ruler overlay to draw empirical data. When drawing lines across facial features, we know consistency across eyes, nose, and lips. The length and width of the face are exact matches as well. Like I said, there's a 6-year difference from leftmost to rightmost. And as you can see, we draw across the line, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And when we superimpose the ruler and the grid, that's when we're able to draw empirical data from this exercise. Now, more calibration overlays of Lee Oswald, the Dallas Police Department and the New Orleans Police Department mugshots. When we run the overlay from 0% opacity to 100, we can appreciate that this is one and the same individual. There was a difference, the New Orleans Police Department was taken in August, okay, the first week of August, and the Dallas Police Department photograph obviously was taken on November 22nd, 1963. Now, in the same manner, we have to calibrate photographs of Billy Lovelady, okay? These are calibration overlays of Lovelady we're gonna use younger and older versions of Billy Lovelady. The first one is in 1967, from this 1967 photo shoot that CBS did. CBS was gonna do a special commemorating the anniversary of the assassination in 1967, and they withdrew the entire episode, but they still provided this photograph, and this is a very important photograph because it shows Billy Lovelady out in the sun, okay? And we'll put more emphasis on that in a little bit. Now, the older Lovelady on the right is from 1976, and it's been it was done, I believe, by Robert Groden and the HSCA, the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Okay. Now, our first overlay result with Billy Lovelady shows that the eyes, the nose, okay, the mouth, everything lines up. The only thing that we have, and I need to stress this here, is since he's squinting his eyes, okay, there's a little bit of a difference there. I mean, that's normal, that's very obvious, but this lines up to be the same individual. And again, we're using the FBI photograph, that photo shoot that I introduced earlier. Now, an older Lovelady, again, the features line up, okay? Now, this is a photogrammetric comparison between Lee Oswald and Billy Lovelady. Shows the difference in height and width of the head and face. Interpupillary distance is wider in Billy Lovelady. And the next two slides, if you look closely, you'll see that the eyes are set right at the crosshairs here and here. And once we have that set, we can actually we can count the squares and give an idea of the dimensions of the face of Billy Lovelady. Okay, the same thing happens with Lee Oswald. As we can see, the face of Lee Oswald was thinner. Okay, and that's very important because once we start with the overlays, you'll notice the difference. These are profiles of both of them, showing the position of the ears, one and the other, which was also different from one another. So let's take a look at some of our results. This is the first overlay of the first image, the one that was flipped. Okay, and as we go from top left to bottom right, okay, we can appreciate a great deal of difference between the features. I'm going to give you a close-up of that. This is an animated GIF where we have put all these images in sequence, and as you can see, it starts at 0% opacity, and as the color begins to come in, you'll see that the features, for example, the nose is more bulbous, the mouth shifts a little bit to the right, the eyebrows are different. As you can see, they move a little higher, okay, and actually the forehead seems a little bit swept back, okay. Now, here is a grid overlay and ruler image. It shows us, areas where we can research, we can draw empirical data and measurements, okay? Now, this is our second overlay using the non-flipped image from the photo shoot by Bob Jackson, okay? And this one is even more compelling because from left to right, down to the bottom, we can see that they just do not line up. And when you see the animation, you'll be able to appreciate the difference between one another. Okay. Now this is a photogrammetric overlay here with the grid and ruler. And now this is our animation. I think once you see this, and it's very important to look at the features. Okay, if you see the features moving around a lot, it's pretty obvious that it's not the same person. When these overlays match, the features do not move at all. Okay, the nose, the mouth, everything seems, because everything is in synchronization. Okay, now I'll just leave that up there for a second. In a minute, I'm going to put both of these side by side. All right, is everybody clear on this? Okay. Now, our observations were Billy Lovelady. Once interpupillary distance had been set, we attempted to scale the head of Lovelady as much as possible to match that of Doorman. Here are some of the anomalies. The nose is rounder, larger, and more bulbous. The bridge is different. Nose shifts to the right, displacing it from the shadow cast by the nose of Doorman. I think that's the most important identification here, or rather the lack of identification. When you look at how his nose is not in synchronization with the nose of Doorman, that shadow should be right under the nose. And in Lovelady's case here, it's not. Okay? There's slightly more space between the lower lip and the tip of the chin, which brings the mouth slightly higher. The eyebrows are more rounded and arched, and there's more space between the eyes and the brow ridge. The shape of the chin is different, and his face is wider. The forehead, like I mentioned earlier, is swept back at a different lower angle. Now, let's take a look at some of the results with Lee Oswald. From left to right, top to bottom. Okay, as we increase opacity, we see that by and large, the features line up. Okay? The nose, and I think that's one of the most important considerations, okay? You can see that the nose, and I'll show you a couple of close-ups here now, coincides with that shadow. Okay, the eyes, the nose, I'll give you a little detail now of the similarities, because here we're talking about similarities, not dissimilarities. And here's our grid overlay, grid and ruler overlay, where we can draw empirical data from this exercise. Now, the key identifiers that we have found here, the interpupillary distance between Oswald and doorman is the same. This makes the eyes line up perfectly. The nose matches, including bridge and general confirmation. More importantly, like I said, the nose is in perfect position to cast a shadow seen below doorman's nose, which was caused by the noon sun. The lips, which are pursed in a particular and specific manner, are a match. The eyebrows and brow ridge are more horizontal and are a match. The high forehead is a match. The chin matches in size and shape. The face matches in both width and height. Okay, here we have it side by side, and here are photogrammetric, drawing our lines across, and these are lined up perfectly. And as we can see here, there's a great deal of difference between one and the other. This is the second non-flip image here, and I want to point this out because this is proof that Billy Lovelady's face was wider. If you look closer, you'll see that the ear doesn't even extend to the ear of doorman. And the reason for that is, as his face is wider, when you have to scale and align the face, it draws the face in, okay? And that's why we have that anomaly there. Now, I'm just gonna let you folks decide here when I put them side by side. And like I said, you have to look and closely at the shifting, okay, of the features, okay? And in both of these, when you put side by side, which one is moving more? As the opacity goes from 0 to higher opacity, okay? That's our flipped image, and now our non-flipped image. Here we see the same situation, okay? I'll leave this here for a second. So can everybody see this? Is that visible here on the screen? Is that good? Okay. Okay. Now this is the reason why this grid is very precise. It doesn't look like it, but it is. The eyes, the grid is intersected with the eyes going sideways, horizontally, and vertically. Okay. The Lovelady on the right, okay, is the normal. But when we have to scale the pupils and the eyes to that of doorman, we see the X shape here of the head, which is caused by that scaling and alignment. And when this happens, the ear falls out of alignment and does not match doorman. Okay, and here is a close-up of the animation with Lee Oswald. Like I said, the key to this is observing if there's any movement of the features as the opacity goes from 0 on to, I believe this is up to 50% opacity. Okay, we'll move on. So, but where is Billy Lovelady in the Altgens 6 photograph if he is not doorman? Our hypothesis: the man standing at the east wall of the entrance on the top step, shielding his eyes from the sun. This is a blow-up of what was commonly known as black hole. Now, if you look closely, you'll see features here. Even though he's in the shadow, we have mouth, nose. These are called laugh lines, or in a scientific term, perioral creases. And a lot of people, when they squint in the sun, they tend to draw these up, okay? And it's like an involuntary reaction, okay? So these are very important considerations, because now when we work on overlays with the other photograph of Billy Lovelady from the frontal angle, we see that, well, we're going to see now the results, okay? Again, the importance of that FBI photo shoot. When we overlay the FBI image onto Black Hole Man, we see that the features, not only do they look right at the east wall at the top step of the doorway. Now here's our animated GIF using that 1967 CBS photograph, and I'll let that run a little bit. Again, you have to focus on if there is movement of the features or if there is no movement of the features. Now we do a photogrammetric comparison, and again, the features line up. Now we're doing this with two different photographs of Billy Lovelady, frontal shots, with Black Coleman. And it seems to me that they both line up pretty good. Now, we couldn't get off this presentation without showing our interpretation of the doorway. Showing Lee Oswald and Billy Lovelady in their respective positions in the Altgens 6 photograph. And finally, a little Photoshop magic, dressing him up in the shirt, both of them with the shirts that they were wearing that day. That concludes our presentation.
If we have a microphone, please. I understand everything you did with lining up everything. I'm having a problem with the hairline. You know, can you comment on the hairline? Because hairline looks more like, Lovelady photograph. It looks more like Lovelady as opposed to Lee Harvey Oswald's hairline.
Sure. Well, the situation with the photograph, where that's a very good question. It's a very good question. Some people, as the lady has been alluding to, that the photograph might have been altered. It's possible, okay, because I'm working with everything from the forehead down, okay, and that is the basis of facial recognition. It's very possible, and I agree with you, but it's possible that they might have. I believe the Altgens 6 photograph was altered because if you look at the doorway man, he's missing a left shoulder. Okay, so the man behind him is both in front of him and behind him at the same time, which is impossible. Okay, so yes, sir.
This is probably a crazy question, but in this case, there's something. Is there any proof or has anyone even suggested or investigated the fact that Mr. Lovelady may have been placed there purposely as an employee because I'm 55, I've worked in a million places since I was 10 years old. I've never had someone who so eerily looked like my physiognomy and physiology as these two guys. If this is a coincidence, it's awfully strange.
Well, if you look closely at the photographs, there's a great deal of difference, but yes. Now, one thing about Billy Lovelady is I believe that he was an alternate patsy because Billy Lovelady was involved in 1961 in a gun-running case at Andrews Air Force Base where he was accused and then he pled. He did a plea bargain with the DA. At that time, he was court-martialed out of the Air Force. And then after being released on bond, he skipped town and he was on the lam for about a year and a couple of months. Okay, so placing Billy Lovelady in the TSPD would have been a backup plan, okay, as an alternate patsy in case Lee Oswald did not work out. Okay? Gun running in the Air Force is a very serious offense. And what they were doing is they were stealing guns from the depot and selling them in bars. And they got caught, and that's how Billy Lovelady, and he ends up in Dallas, okay? And that's another important consideration because the TSPD company refrained from hiring individuals who had dishonorable discharges and who had that type of background. So how does Billy Lovelady end up working in the TSPD? So I think that's a very, very important consideration. Yes, ma'am.
My point about the profile is that I actually believe at this point that is not our previous witness. It is a semi-close, much darker man, and that it was put there to cover that belly button, as Dr. Cinque has said. And therefore, though our witness was roughly in that position, he actually would have been facing more forward-ish or towards Kennedy. That's completely the opposite direction. I believe it's an interpolation. Also, that love lady there and other things about that photo, like the shoulder and Jack Ruby possibly behind there, those things were altered. Mark Lane has had a different copy of this photograph. I don't know if anyone knows it, in the 1967 movie that he made. And it had a boutonniere, a white boutonniere, just as Jack Ruby often wore on his left shoulder, which was taken out for these versions, and so on. And of course, that white panel of all contrasts have been changed. The little child who supposedly you would think would be held and sitting up in that man's arms to the left on the photo, the right of the doorway. That little child, you can see the body structure is standing. So there's a covering up of who that man is, and he may have been an agent. But I wanted to say to you, Larry, I'm Claire, you know me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this. I'm in the second article that was written for Veterans Today. I'm one of the contributors, but God bless you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Claire. Well, you know, we could talk for 2 hours or more about alteration of the Altgens photograph, because there are many areas of alteration. That's not what this presentation is about. Maybe next year or something like that.
I just wanted to raise it so people didn't think it was just this.
Yes, because we found at least 12 or 15 different areas of alteration, including ink spots and that type of thing, you know, hiding people, for example, with cameras, even Emory Roberts, you can see a big ink splotch over his mouth where it's obvious that he was speaking into a microphone, you know, many instances. Yes, sir. Rommel, we got 3 more minutes, right? 5 more minutes? 5. Okay.
This is simple, but I want to be sure I understand. So the guy in the doorway is actually...
Thank you for your presentation. You did a very good job explaining the theories behind your system. For those who haven't seen, the police artist for the Houston Police Department who did the 3 Tramp, I don't know if many people have seen that. Lois,
yes.
Yeah, she did a fantastic job, which really shows how this works.
That's right.
And I thought in the case of the 3 Tramps, she clearly identified them as the 3.
Harrelson, yes.
That's
right. Rogers, Harrelson,
and Wacko from Houston, who murdered his parents, and Harrelson and I think Chauncey Holt. Okay. I don't want to detract from this thrust here, but the photo that appears strongly to be George H.W. Bush is a much higher quality picture.
Yes.
And I would ask you to do
the
same thing on that.
We will. Yeah. Thank you. That's a great idea.
Just a quick question. How did if the Texas School Book Depository did do extensive background checks, what about Oswald, given that he had been...
That's right. Absolutely. Well, if Oswald was an agent, okay, CIA, and he had different assignments. For example, in New Orleans, he was assigned to try to infiltrate the Cubans, okay? All they had to do was say, Lee, we've got suspicion of gun running in the TSBD. This is your assignment. That's how you get him in there. Okay?
Since we have Roy Lewis here today, isn't there a way that a comparison could be done with a photograph of him and the man?
Absolutely. Let's see if we can give us a profile before he leaves.
Yeah.
That's right. Great idea. I'll make a point of that. Real quick.
A couple of sides.
Yeah.
Time-wise, is this consistent with the woman employee of the School Book Depository who's used by the Coke machine on the 2nd floor?
Okay,
Mrs. Reed, Mrs. Robert Reed, are you talking Geraldine Reed?
I don't know her name, but somebody...
Geraldine Reed, I'd like to...
Yeah, Geraldine Reed, yeah. But she saw him come through in a t-shirt, not the shirt.
There are 2 Geraldine Reeds. In fact, there are 3 Geraldines altogether. Some of them are mixed up, and I'd like to say that this is difficult for me to say. I respect Robert Rhodes' work a great deal, but we have a problem with the fact that she said when she was giving him change that he didn't want to get pennies because he was against civil rights and didn't want Lincoln. Now, when he's arrested, he's got pennies in his pocket. And I am a witness that we sat in the back of the bus, we were pro-civil rights. So she's embroidered at least what she had.
Been out there, and these tapes have been lost at the National Archives. And, yeah, okay. So a colleague of ours, Dennis Morissette, uploaded these, and found one of them, and he uploaded it to YouTube, and we downloaded it, and it was very, very poor condition because the audio was very poor. We fixed the audio, and we transcribed the entire interview. And at one point, when Kenneth Bruton asked Billy Lovelady from where you were standing, even though you didn't see him, could Lee Oswald have been in the doorway? And he says he could have. And it's coming straight from Billy Lovelady's mouth. Okay, so that's it's pretty compelling right there.
Maybe he was couching his words.
It's pretty, maybe. Okay, so yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Would it be rational for him to see this and then go up